The ACTO Conference theme, Humans First, calls us to center social identity in coach training. In your experience, what does it look like to lead and learn in a way that truly honors the wholeness of who we are?
Thank you. Thank you, JT. So, yeah, in my experience, it's so important that we honor the wholeness of who we are, which begins by us recognizing that every client, every student, every facilitator enters the space shaped by their personal histories. It's personal, it's cultural, it's systemic, and these histories live in their bodies. So, as a coach and a coach educator, it means that I need to slow down enough to really see beyond whatever performance they might be arriving with to their story. It's about beyond their behaviors and how do I try and connect with their being. And this is a very intentional practice of witnessing people's fullness without trying to fit them into whatever framework I think they should be in, because these frameworks were never designed with their experiences in mind. So for me, it looks like embedding a lot of inquiry about power, privilege, loss, resilience, and belonging into every part of our coach training. It shouldn't be an optional side discussion, but it should be pivotal and central. It should be the central threads of our coach training. And it's leading and learning in a way that holds complexity, that discomfort, and nurtures the dignity of our clients and our students, not just for the students and the clients that we serve, but for us as the coaches or the coach educators as well.
Your work is deeply rooted in lineage, land, and lived experience. How have your ancestral stories shaped how you hold space, facilitate healing, and lead across identity and difference?
So being a healer, being an Indigenous healer, my ancestors have really taught me that healing doesn't happen in isolation. It happens in community, in relationship, in a shared witnessing and remembering. I grew up in South Africa during apartheid in a working class community where I learned at a very early age that space holding was not about fixing people. It was about honoring survival, affirming dignity, and making visible what the system, what apartheid system was trying to erase. So, as a healer and a family constellation practitioner, I know that we carry not just our own wounds that we've experienced in this human experience, but the unhealed wounds of our lineage, of our ancestors. So, when I coach or facilitate, I really hold space through that lens, understanding that every person carries both visible or invisible stories that shape how they lead, how they relate, and how they belong in any context. So leading across difference, leading across different identities for me means walking with deep humility, recognizing that every story I encounter, every client, every student I encounter is sacred, and that every healing process is a collective remembering.
We often hear about inclusion, but your work invites us deeper toward embedding difference. How do we begin to recognize when sameness is still being centered even in well meaning spaces?
Yeah, sameness often feels like safety to dominant cultures because it doesn't require real transformation. So, dominant cultures expect clients and students to assimilate to their dominant culture. We know that sameness is being centered when the invitation is to bring your whole self, but only if that self fits in very neatly into existing norms. We recognize it when, as well, there's an expectation of gratitude for being included rather than a restructuring of the space itself to include difference. So I really hold dear and close to my heart as coaches and coach educators. We need to ask hard questions. Whose ways of knowing are legitimized here? Whose discomfort is being prioritized? What ways of being are unintentionally being asked to shrink? Embedding difference means welcoming the dissonance as data, not as a disruption. It means creating spaces that expect and embrace friction, because friction and finding common ground is where authentic transformation really begins.
You carry wisdom from both traditional healing and constellation work. What lessons from your ancestral practices do you believe coach educators and facilitators need most right now?
I think one profound lesson is that healing and learning are cyclical, it's not linear. Any kind of healing process is never linear. And from an indigenous practice and family constellation work perspective, we don't rush people towards resolution. We invite them to sit with what is. We honor the unseen, the unspoken, and the unfinished, because we don't know the answers. Coach educators need to lean into this wisdom. I find that really helps me. It's about holding the paradox, making space for what is trying to emerge, making space for what is emerging, not just what is planned. So I can never script a session as a coach. Another vital lesson is belonging to a greater whole, recognizing that and holding that. And this greater whole is to our lineage, to community, to future generations. And in a coaching profession that often overemphasizes individualism, we need to reweave collective consciousness into how we teach, how we learn, and how we coach. Yeah, and finally, I think we must restore ritual and reverence into our learning spaces. And I don't mean that from a religious perspective, but in the intentional creation of moments for acknowledgement, honoring, transition, which deepen connection with deeper meaning as well.
As we prepare to gather for the ACTO Conference 2025 on Juneteenth, a federal holiday in the US that marks both delayed justice and enduring liberation, what invitation are you extending to this global coaching community? And what do you hope we're ready to receive, confront, or remember?
Great, thank you. So, the way I'm receiving it, my invitation is, let us not gather simply to learn about social identity differences. Let's gather to reckon, to remember, and to recommit. Juneteenth has taught us and teaches us that freedom delayed is still freedom pursued. So justice deferred demands ongoing vigilance, deep accountability, and collective imagination. So I invite us as this coaching community to confront where in our own coaching, our own teaching, and our own institutions we have unconsciously replicated delay. Delay in seeing, delay in naming, and delay in transforming. And I invite us to remember that coaching is a relational act of liberation when done with awareness and courage, that the evolution of coaching as a profession depends on our willingness to embed, not just include, difference at every level of our practices, and that healing, justice, and freedom are ancestral mandates. That's the mandate that I work with. It's not a trend, and I hope we are ready to move from aspiration to embodiment, from inviting difference to be truly transformed by the difference. That's the invitation for me.